Hey there, friend, it's GM Jim, and we're gonna talk about murder, hoboism, and tabletop RPGs. But first, let me tell you a story to set the scene. I was playing a warlock in a 5e campaign, and we were in a city. Our party needed to communicate with some amphibian creatures to progress the narrative, but we didn't speak a common language. So my warlock went into the market and in his New York accent started asking everyone, "Anybody here speak frog? Hey pal, you speak frog? Anybody?" And eventually a potion seller came forward and offered to sell a magical concoction that would enable us to converse with the creatures. I rolled an insight check because this was a very sketchy part of town, but I rolled low. Everything seemed a-okay to my character, so I bought the potion. In a later scene, we approach the amphibian creatures and my warlock drinks the potion. Make a constitution save. It's not a potion of comprehend languages, it's some kind of rotten psychedelic. Of course, I knew this was probably going to happen, but my PC was oblivious and then very angry after, because he was a short-tempered halfling. Fast forward to when we're back in town and my warlock decides to track down the shady potion seller. I find him in the market, I storm into his shop, he's scared. And then I get carried away during a moment of improv and use the minor illusion cantrip to make my voice boom when I hold out the rest of the potion and say, "Drink it." Now, above table, there's a little miscommunication here between me and the DM. The DM thinks I'm telling the NPC to drink his entire stock of the potion, and so I'm unclear on exactly what happens next. Either way, the NPC drinks a big jug of this poison and basically goes insane. Because I'm caught up in the moment, I do not correct the DM about my intentions and just go with it. The DM begins to narrate this NPC losing his sanity, and I can tell the DM is uncomfortable describing it, so I immediately feel guilty. After, my warlock takes the NPC to a local healer who says they can't cure him but can give him a safe place to rest for now. Basically, he's lost his mind and can't be fixed. A couple sessions later, my warlock gets a chance to have a chat with his patron. I describe to him what happened and how I feel guilty about it. My patron basically lets me off the hook by saying, shit happens and maybe the guy deserved it because now he can't hurt anyone else with his poisonous potions. In real life, I used to be part of a writer's critique group where we would meet and give feedback on each other's works in progress. And there was a woman in the group who once said something I thought was pretty profound. She said it's okay for your protagonist or any other quote good character to sometimes do bad things as long as you show the reader afterward that they feel bad for doing it. A character without a conscience is not a relatable character. Anyway, we're here today to talk about fixing murder hobos in tabletop role-playing games, and real quick, since I have you, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it helps us both out. Make sure to click all next to notifications and click the join button to get exclusive perks when you join my channel. So I came across this social media post not too long ago and it caught my attention. You can see I played a bit of devil's advocate in the comments because I was just curious what people would say. One of the philosophical tabletop questions I've been pondering lately is where do you draw the line between what the players want to do at the table and what the GM wants to do? Because there has to be a balance, right? A tabletop RPG campaign should be partially based around what the players have in mind for their PC's goals and intentions and what they find fun. But the GM is also a player at the table and has just as much right to mirth and merriment as anyone else. We all know about railroading when the GM forces a particular outcome on the players and they have little agency to guide the scene in the direction they want. But there's also a kind of reverse railroading that the players can do to the GM. I don't know if there's a term for this, but we're keeping our train metaphor so it would be a train robbery, or a hijacking is maybe a better word. So the players can, if they want, hijack a campaign and steal all the agency from the GM. It's when the PCs enter the king's court and the king says, "The crown wants to hire you for a mission," then the PCs all just start attacking and killing everyone in the court because they're murder hobos. Shopkeeper charging too much for magic items? Just kill her and take whatever you want. So I put it out to the TTRPG community with some social posts to see what they think. And the general TLDR of it all was this. Being a murder hobo is all well and good if everyone at the table agrees to make it that kind of campaign. But if there's a clash between what the players want and what the GM wants, then murder hoboism is not cool. And the other TLDR many noted is that the key to making this not become a problem is by simply having a discussion beforehand about campaign expectations. This is part of what the Session 0 is for. I've said this before on the channel, but I do believe that 90% of problems at the table can be solved by having conversations about those issues, sometimes difficult conversations, and no one likes having difficult conversations. If you take a stroll through Reddit D&D horror stories, you'll often see that so much drama and heartache could have been avoided if people had just talked about the problem before it blew up in their faces. And I don't want to sound preachy here, this is something that I also need to work on. And many noted this same sentiment, that murder hoboism isn't necessarily a problem if everyone is having fun. The point of tabletop games is to have fun and tell a collaborative story, and it's normal and natural for some players to have differing ideas of what constitutes fun. The customer is always right ... in matters of taste. In fact, I very much like this post where the GM seems to be into it and might even encourage this sort of behavior. This GM is clearly a chaos monkey in a sea of chaos monkeys, and everyone at the table is there for it. I tend to agree with this sentiment that chaos is some of the most fun stuff in TTRPGs, but I can certainly see that not everyone might feel the same way about it. Again, the customer is always right in matters of taste. And I really like what this GM lays out here as a 4-part agreement. 1. Your character must consistently work with and support the rest of the party. 2. Your character must be consistently willing to engage with the plot of the campaign. 3. Your character must plausibly fit into the setting where the campaign takes place, as well as the overall tone of the campaign itself. And 4. Players must engage in the campaign in good faith. These all seem like reasonable expectations to set at the beginning of any campaign or to reinforce whenever someone new joins the campaign. It's good to have a mini Session 0 check-in from time to time to make sure everyone is still on the same page in terms of gameplay. Sometimes tastes change. And like these replies, I saw a lot of comments about teaching the players a lesson, giving out punishments, and I honestly have mixed feelings about this. I think that handing out summary judgment is a lot less preferable than setting expectations. One is communicative and one is punitive. As a player, I really don't like the idea of being reprimanded for my behavior in a tabletop game because, you're not my dad and you're not my boss. There's a rebellious streak in me that tells me to rebel harder when I feel like my behavior is being corrected. And here I would make a distinction between consequences and punishments. If you kill a member of the town guard, it would be a natural consequence to see wanted posters with your faces on them spring up around town. And now let's return to my initial question and the thesis of this video. Does murder hoboism need to be corrected? Is it a problem that needs fixing? And the conclusion I've come to is that if you as a GM are at the point where you have problem players who are behaving in ways that need to be corrected, it's probable it could have been avoided if you had set the proper expectations at the outset. Did you just assume that your players would behave a certain way and then they didn't do that? A GM and their players might have entirely different preconceived ideas of what constitutes reasonable behavior or fun behavior. Like I said, it's better to set expectations than it is to hand out consequences. It's better to make it clear what kinds of behaviors are not okay, and then when that verbal contract is broken, you can say, hey gang, this isn't what we agreed to. Because without that expectation setting, maybe the players don't even know. Because D&D is a strange game for beginners to grasp sometimes. As game masters, we tend to say things like, you can do whatever you want in TTRPGs, the only limit is your imagination. And then when that player says, well then I want to murderize that shopkeeper who tried to rip me off, and you say, okay, well you actually can't do that. It's confusing. But it's only confusing if you haven't properly explained what is and what is not okay in the game beforehand. Here's an example. A couple years ago, I was trying to get my friend and co-author Nick to play D&D, and he wasn't interested. He said he had played years before, and the dungeon master in that game had said, you can do anything you want. So the first thing he wanted to do was stab the bartender at the tavern, and the DM said, no, you can't do that. And so Nick said, this game is a lie, and he never played again. And so there we have it. Do murder hobos need fixing? Maybe, but it's better to prevent a troublesome habit than it is to correct it once it's gotten out of control. It's just like what your dentist tells you about brushing your teeth. And our preventative medicine here is having clear-cut expectations that are properly communicated and understood all around the table. And, if necessary, sometimes compromising in a way that everyone can live with. Because we're all players at the table and we all have a right to enjoy the game. Until next time, I'm GM Jim. Now go have some fun at your table.